Advertise with us and reach millions daily, weekly, monthly. Yeah, over 10 million per month. It pays to advertise with us. Reach more and let us send your business viral. Advertise with us and reach more. Yeah. Welcome right along live on a beautiful Thursday. Yes. As you come in, go ahead and share up the thing, guys. Another interesting, informative, and educational program. Of course, right along live. What you expect? What did you expect, guys? Ladies and gentlemen, come on. Hey, big up Donna Bernard Alexis. How are you, my dear? I see you. I see you. Sandra, I see you. Everybody share. Let me do it as well. Because today, we're going to be talking with former Prime Minister Tillman Thomas, affectionately called Uncle Tilly. Uncle Tilly is joining us today, and we're going to talk about a variety of things. Because there have been much discussion in this past couple of days about the oil and gas, right? If you guys been paying attention to the throne speech by the Governor General, Dame Cecile Lagarde, the Prime Minister's throne speech that was presented by the Governor General, those are one of the things, that's actually, at least, that was one of the things that was spoken about. And the Prime Minister alleged that there is little or no information in relation to the oil and gas exploration in Grenada. Now, Uncle Tillman Thomas, was Prime Minister from 2008 to 2013, around that time there, before he was voted out of office. Then the Prime Minister, Dr. Keith Mitchell, was in power from then and just recently lost election to the new NDC headed by Honorable Deacon Mitchell. So between that time, ladies and gentlemen, the allegations by the current administration is that there have been no information, no transitional information about the oil and gas exploration. Now, there's a lot of back and forth on that, but I think Uncle Tilly will be able to add some clarification for us today. So that's why it's important that we speak with former Prime Minister Tillman Thomas. He's going to be joining us very, very soon. He's actually here, right there. But I want you guys to share a little bit because we have to give the former Prime Minister, a better welcome than that. Everybody share the program. Let me do it as well. And let me tell you guys, after yesterday's program, my throat is like on fire. It feels like I need to take like a whole week off. I had a sore throat, all kind of thing today that I've been pacifying just to do today's program. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, help me welcome the former Prime Minister of Grenada, Carriacou and Petite Martinique, Uncle Tillman Thomas. How you doing, my friend? How you doing, sir?
I'm doing fairly okay for the time.
Nice, nice. Every time I see you, Uncle Tilly, it's like you don't aging at all.
Well, I'm there, doing some exercising, doing some gardening,
Nice.
Being active.
Nice. Well, listen, I saw you, when last I saw you in Grenada about 2 years ago. We spoke, I think, last year as well. And it seems like every time your age is going backwards. While I am getting the gray hair and looking old, you just look the same all the time, Uncle Tilly. So that's blessings upon blessings.
The hair is gray for a long time now.
All right, Uncle Tilly, listen, I think that I wanted to talk to you today because I think that you would add much clarity to this conversation about oil and gas exploration in Grenada, right? But before I get into the conversation of oil and gas, I have to ask you about this, right? The new administration, the NDC administration now has dedicated and will be dedicating August 19th as a public holiday. October 19th as a public holiday, right? And it's also the introduction or the start of the celebration of the 50th anniversary of independence. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, first, that date, the 19th of October, has to be recognized. I mean, there's no doubt about it. It's a very important date in our history, but at the same time, you cannot really separate that date from the 25th. I have no problem with the 19th being a holiday. It is a catastrophe took place that day. It's a very unfortunate thing with this execution of the Prime Minister and others. But listen how I look at this.
Mm-hmm.
The 19th, I use the analogy to the Christian tradition.
Uh-huh.
In the Christian community, we recognize Good Friday.
Yes.
But we celebrate Easter Sunday. And this is how I put it to you now. On the 19th, there was an execution.
Yes.
Bishop and several others. Whether you like it or not, on the 25th, there was a resurrection of democratic institutions and respect for human rights.
Mm-hmm.
Prior to that date, there was no freedom of expression, no freedom of association. People were detained without trial. People like you, who are journalists, you couldn't come out and do as you want. Take, for instance, the Catholic focus was crushed by the revolution. But after the 25th, it was resurrected.
Right.
The Grenadian voice was resurrected. The democratic institutions start taking shape. So in that respect, I see the 25th as the most significant date, though I recognize what took place on the 19th.
Mm-hmm.
What did I say? The 19th, the execution. The 25th, the resurrection of democratic institutions. And all of those of us who subscribe to democracy and believe in human rights, we ought to be celebrating the 25th.
Right. You were incarcerated during that period of time. Do you forgive the people or those that committed such atrocities on that particular day? Do you find it in your heart to forgive them up to a day like today?
Yeah. I forgive them. I mean, since I was detained, I forgive them. I never be. As a matter of fact, I used the period to practice yoga and to exercise. I didn't make that a burden on me at all. Up to today,
right.
I practice yoga. Probably that's why I look so fit still. The yoga I practice in the prison.
Right. So it's you have moved on from that.
Precisely, long. I moved on from that long.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's nice to hear. Now, if this is so significant, and you being the Prime Minister from 2008 to 2013, why didn't you make that date a significant holiday during your tenure as Prime Minister?
It was recognized. There were a lot of discussions on it, but I say I had nothing against it. It's a day we ought to recognize.
Right. Okay, so you're in full support of the 19th.
What I was saying, my stand was that you couldn't sacrifice the 25th for the 19th. That's always been my stand. I recognize the 19th. It's a very significant day. But for those of us who subscribe to democracy, a democratic institution, the 25th is like the resurrection of democracy. And we have to be celebrating that continuously, especially people like you in the field of journalism.
Yes, absolutely. The freedom to speak and to let voices be heard. I think it's a privilege, I should say. So good. I really wanted to get over that because there have been a lot of pushback from many circles saying that the 19th being such a sad day, why are we recognizing it as a holiday? Why are we recognizing it, not for a holiday, sorry, not as a holiday. Why are we recognizing it as the start of the celebration of the 50th anniversary of independence when the person, the Prime Minister, Maurice Bishop, who was assassinated, one of the persons that was assassinated on that day, he was not even so much in support of independence as was Eric Gary. Why not start it on his birthday? That was some of the pushback from some circles.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, it doesn't matter what time it starts. My concern is that that date ought to be remembered so that we would never tolerate totalitarianism, one party. That must make us remember the significance and the importance of democracy.
Right.
Because if there was a democratic state in Grenada, that could not have happened. And this is why sometimes I tend to blame those who remain silent during the revolution, the churches, civil society. They wait until the thing came to a destructive end.
Right.
Well, if they took a stand, like some of us did when we published the Grenadian Voice, if they stood up with us, that might have been able to save Grenada from this disaster. Because you cannot have you see the trend the country was going in, this one-party state. I mean, when you reflect on it, they detain us and they call us counter-revolutionary. And the leader of the country ended up as a counter-revolutionary. It just shows you the dangers of that system. You know, this one-party, this communistic one-party state is a danger. So we always have to reflect that day what caused us to end up in this.
Right.
Is that system.
Okay. All right. Listen, and we will do a lot to recognize that day. I'll be in Grenada on that day, and I'm looking to tie the history closer together, because there are still a lot of people who's not even aware of that history. It seems like that history was somehow not taught efficiently in schools, and I'm happy that Grenadian history is being taught so that people will get more recollection of it. But we will be in Grenada recognizing that day and bringing a closer connect to the history and what happened on that particular day, October 19th on October 25th.
Yeah, we must recognize the contribution of the revolution, but at the same time, we must remember the suffering, the destruction of democratic institutions, and the disregard for human rights. I believe whatever we're doing in life, there must be a kingdom perspective. And that was sadly lacking in the revolution. There was no kingdom perspective in the revolution. It was materialism and power and exploitation and destruction.
Right.
And this is why they ended up this way.
Yeah.
Without a kingdom perspective in you, you're destined, to meet tough times.
Yeah. Okay, great. Again, we will have a lot more conversation coming closer to that date. But specifically what I wanted to talk to you about, former Prime Minister Tilly, is oil and gas exploration. I want to preface this part of the conversation with a video from WPG 10. Now, they had this report out, and I want to give full credit to them for this report. Let's take a look at this report. You're going to listen it, but we'll talk about it on the other side. Take a listen.
Big tonight, a verbal outbreak between the two Mitchells in Grenada, the former Prime Minister and the current one, about the exact state of things regarding the country's pursuit of oil and gas. Nikita Wells reports from St. George's, and we start with an excerpt from the throne speech in St. George's Tuesday by the island's Governor-General.
As of today, we are yet to solve the mystery of Grenada's offshore oil and gas reserves. Very little records can be found anywhere within the government, and our technocrats within the ministries and departments have very little information on this matter.
The issue of Grenada's efforts to explore for oil and gas was the biggest point of contention following the throne speech at the opening of the new session of the Grenada Parliament on Tuesday. The government said it is yet to find any documentation about what deals were struck or progress made in the exploration quest, even though administration in St. George have been at it for 2 decades. A few years ago, then Prime Minister Dr. Keith Mitchell made a major announcement about Grenada being at the brink of announcing significant findings.
Sisters and brothers, the report said that we have found significant gas and oil in the waters of Grenada in one well so far. Brothers, one well. We have several more wells which are even more exciting than the one they just found.
This new government says they had no reports or seen any documentation about any aspects of the oil and gas exploration.
This situation is untenable, and completely unacceptable, and my government is committed to doing all within its power to unearth the mystery of Grenada's oil and gas status.
And it's announced on Tuesday that a special committee headed by former Finance Minister Nazim Burke is being put together to look into the entire matter.
To this end, my government has established a technical working group chaired by a past Minister for Finance, Mr. Nazim Burke, and comprised of distinguished Grenadians, including Mr. Rodney George, Mr. Richard Duncan, Mr. Raymond Nurse, and the Office of the Attorney General, represented by the Solicitor General, to investigate and to do what it takes to demystify our oil and gas situation.
But in an immediate response outside of the Parliament afterwards, now Opposition Leader Dr. Keith Mitchell accused the new government of lying about the issue.
This government is being characterized by telling lies, which are obviously blatant, and you know many of them we have spoken about. They lie about oil and gas, that they have no documentation. It's a blatant lie.
Asked to respond soon afterwards, current Prime Minister Dickon Mitchell challenged his predecessor to guide the administration as to where it can find relevant documentation.
Minister Bowen was Minister for Energy for a long time. If they know where the files are, then they can certainly, in the public interest, direct the technocrats at the public, at the various ministries where the files can be obtained, so that they can provide the files to us. I'll challenge the opposition leader. If he says he knows where the file is, ask him if his colleague ministers know where the files are. Right? If they know where the files are, then either them or him can publicly indicate where the files are, where they've been stored, and how the files can be accessed, and indicate that to the public servants so that they can tell us. So when I say to you, we have written transition reports from every ministry. Oil and gas was not mentioned in a single report.
Dr. Mitchell, however, said that the exploitation efforts, which were started under prior administration, had continued under the 2008 NDC administration.
Enough documentation, how do you mean? That's years of that. Don't forget, there was government that came into office NDC before this one, and would have followed up on a number of activities. So it's a very strange, I'm saying it's a blatant lie.
For Primetime News at the Carib Update News Desk,
Sorry, you're not here. You wasn't hearing me. No, you hear me now. You hear me now. Yeah, Uncle Tilly. So, again, thanks again to Carib Update for that report. Uncle Tilly, my question to you is, they have been back and forth, this one calling this one liar and referring that the documents are there or somewhere, that the Prime Minister said he don't have no recollection, he don't have no information about it. What was your administration recollection, or where was your administration at in terms of the exploration of oil and gas in Grenada?
Okay, well, let's look at the background of our resources and see how we have been approaching it. The first NDC administration under Nicholas Brafitt got the Commonwealth Secretariat to prepare a negotiating strategy dealing with our resources in the sea, our oil and gas and other resources. That strategy was prepared, and the NDC lost the election in 1995.
Right.
The NDC came into office, and as far as I've been reliably informed, that the NNP gave that negotiating strategy to Jack Grindberg. They were in some negotiation with Grindberg. I mean, if you're concerned about the resources of your country, you have to protect the resources. You cannot take the negotiating strategy prepared by the Commonwealth Secretariat, and give it to Grindberg. So Grindberg and the NP, they had dealings over the years. Not much took place. The NNP lost the election in 2008, and we came into office.
Yes.
And what we did was that to identify, to delimit our resources. If you have resources, you cannot have it spread all over. Anybody has access to it. Trinidad could come in, Venezuela could come in. We sought to demarcate so we know exactly what belongs to Grenada. And we signed an agreement with Trinidad and Tobago. It is well known. We didn't sign one with Venezuela. We didn't get that opportunity. But that was signed. The same NNP administration criticized, make noise and say that we didn't enter into a good deal. But common sense will tell you, before you could explore resources, you must know what you have.
Yeah, you have to know the demarcation lines. Yes.
So we laid the foundation. We were transparent in the whole process. And again, we lost the elections in 2013. But I'm saying that this documentation should be in the ministry. There was a minister for energy under the NNP. There was a minister for energy during the NDC. But you see, I'm saying in as much as the NNP could take the negotiating strategy and give it to Grindberg, who knows what they would do with the other files? I mean, anybody's guess as to what they would do with some of the other files. So, I mean, this back and front, I think the documentation should be in the ministry, and those who are connected should be called upon to account.
Right.
You know, as I say, we laid the foundation. We did the demarcation, and we were ready to enter into an agreement with Trinidad, so we could negotiate with Trinidad or other, prospective people who are involved in the energy sector. But our approach to this thing has been open, transparent, and at all times to protect the interests and the resources of the Grenadian people.
Right. Besides the demarcation lines and boundaries between Trinidad, Venezuela, Grenada, what else were included in that document?
Well, I haven't got the details, but basically it's establishing the boundary, and there will be opportunities for negotiating with prospective people interested in the business, and even prospective nations like Trinidad and Tobago, and even other countries.
Right. So based on the information that you collected as Prime Minister, head of the country, did you get any indication that lead you to believe that Grenada has a substantial amount of oil and gas in its waters?
I wouldn't say substantial, but we know that we have oil and gas in our waters. As to the extent, I'm not too sure about the extent, but we know we have oil and gas in our waters.
Right.
Because some done before.
Right. And so you don't know the quantitative amount that is not established?
No.
Right. So from knowing that we have oil and gas there and figuring out the boundaries and stuff like that, what then could somebody do with that document in terms, like say if Trinidad were to get a hold of that particular document, right? What then could they do with that document that could benefit?
There isn't much you could. Trinidad may have a copy of it. If you enter into an agreement with two nations, they would have a copy of the agreement we entered into.
Right.
An agreement is between two parties, and Trinidad and Tobago would have a copy of it. But there were other players in the Grenada situation. As you know, Grindberg took the government of Grenada to court. He was not successful, but he took the NDC administration. He took us to court.
Tell us a little bit about that court action.
Well, again, I think he lost. I haven't got all the details, but he was not successful.
Right. And no, what I try to understand is what was the reasoning for taking the Grenada government to court in full extent?
Well, I guess based on his claim that he wanted to. Again, I say I haven't got the details, but he wanted to claim most of the resources in our waters.
Okay. Okay, so I have some questions here, and let me see if I could try to get through it because there's a list of questions that others submitted. I don't know if you could get to it if you have any information on it as well. One question submitted here was, can you provide an overview of the policy and strategies your administration implemented to promote oil and gas exploration in Grenada?
Well, no, that would be the Minister for Energy, who was then Mr. Nazimbok, might be able to give you more details on that.
Okay, so that information is not readily available now. So let me go down to the list of questions because again, we have a lot of submission as people try to find out about oil and gas exploration. Also, guys, we open up the phone lines. The phone lines are open if you want to call in at any point in time to ask your question. Now is the time you can do that as well. Another question that was submitted were there any significant challenges or obstacles your government faced in promoting oil and gas exploration, and how did you address them?
Well, we did the demarcation and we were just about to go out, negotiating with potential investors. And we were not in office for long after the demarcation. But we had some discussions with Trinidad and Tobago.
Right. Okay. And that's as far as it went. Okay, so we go on to the next question submitted by some of our viewers prior to the program. They want to know, were there any significant challenge? No, we asked that one already. What measures did your administration take to ensure transparency and accountability in the oil and gas exploration sector?
Well, all our activities in that sector was transparent. Yeah, I mean, the negotiation went to Trinidad and there were attorneys. I remember Ansem Clouden and others. It was an open, discussion between the Trinidad team and the Grenada team. There was nothing secret, nothing to hide.
Right.
Also, Senator Ali Gill at the time was there too.
Right. Question also submitted by our viewer. Could you elaborate on the status of any of the oil and gas exploration project that was initiated during your tenure?
No, I cannot go into any details on that. We started out with the boundaries, and then the plan next also approach the Venezuelan government because we also have a boundary with Venezuela.
Right.
We're trying to straighten the boundaries and then to get into more details of capitalizing on the resources in the sea.
Okay. Again, another question submitted by our viewer. We want to take your calls as well, guys. At any point, you could call in. We have Uncle Tillman Thomas, former Prime Minister of Grenada, on the program. Were there international partnership agreement your administration pursued to support oil and gas exploration in Grenada?
No. We had discussion, but I don't think there was any agreement.
Right. So there is no other international interest in Grenada's oil and gas exploration?
Not as far as I know.
Right. Do you think that...
You could get more details on that from the former Minister for Energy.
Right.
He was the one handling the energy sector.
Do you think that there would have been, or there could be, any international interest that might be existing now, from what you knew from back then? Do you think that there could have been a developing interest from international sector that might be somehow interested in Grenada's oil and gas exploration?
Yeah, there may be people who are interested, and they could enter into negotiation and dialogue with the Grenada government.
Okay. All right. Another question submitted by one of our viewers here. They want to know, what lessons do you believe the new administration should learn from the government experience with oil and gas exploration?
What lessons? Well, again, as I say, when there's a transfer of administration, the documentation and the files have to be there in the office, so they should be transferred to the incoming administration. I cannot fault the new administration for anything. Is that if they were not transferred to them, if the documents were disappeared, well, what could they do about it? Is to investigate. Mm-hmm. We have to set out investigative, arms to go about and to discover the documents. But I cannot fault or blame the new administration for anything relating to oil and gas.
Right. What about the transitional process, Uncle Tilly? When a government, like for instance, your government was voted out in 2013, right? You would have possibly have to prepare some kind. I don't know if that's how it is, but I know in the U.S. and other places they have a process of transition where that information is shared with the incoming administration. We know in Grenada it's quite different. There is no transitional period. You win today, you get sworn in tomorrow, right? But do you know of any transitional document that is presented by outgoing administration to incoming administration?
Yeah, that's the role of the permanent secretaries. You see, the minister is, more like a figurehead. The permanent secretary, they control all the records, all the documentation, and they're the ones who brief the incoming ministers. So
Right.
there is a form of transition, but that's why you see the public sector, the permanent secretaries are so important. They play a major role in the system.
Yes.
I mean, there's some that attempt to politicize them, and that could create problems. But if they really representing the public, and they should be fair and balanced, and they are the ones who are supposed to brief the incoming ministers.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So the Prime Minister, the now Prime Minister saying that he has no transitional document, little or nothing or no document, transitional document. Is that alarming to you that there are no information pertaining to oil and gas exploration in any transitional document?
Yeah, it is, because there should be some documentation on whatever activities the government engage in, especially after making that announcement, because the Prime Minister made that announcement after some investigation was done. So there should be some documentation. What was this amount of wells he spoke about? There should be some information in the Ministry of Energy about these statements that were made.
Right. The Prime Minister also said that, or alleged that other ministers besides the Energy Minister and possibly the Prime Minister, and that's allegations, no other minister was privy to information in regards to oil and gas exploration. Does that to you ring suspect?
Yeah, well, it's supposed to be all those who are part of the cabinet should be part of the discussion on the resources of the country, and whatever contracts or agreement the government is entering into, the cabinet should be part of it. They should know what's going on.
Right. So if other ministers say that they don't know anything about it, no information was shared to them, that would raise a red flag to you.
Well, it does, but it shows what kind of government you have. It's not really a democratic government that representing the people of the country through parliamentary representation, because each MP or especially cabinet ministers, should be privy to what government is policies and programs government is embarking upon, especially when it comes to the natural resources of the country or the resources generally.
Right. Okay. Again, guys, we're chatting here with former Prime Minister Tillman Thomas, and we're trying to do our own digging, right? Our own private digging, because as the post that you saw earlier from WPG 10, it's a bunch of names calling back and forth now. The former Prime Minister saying that the former Prime Minister is saying that they're lying about the information. The Prime Minister now is saying that there are absolutely no information there. So I think it's incumbent on us and other media entities to really seek to find the truth, and that truth may not be found by what the conclusion of either one of the parties say. We need to do our own investigation, own digging. So that's why we have set up our own investigation to find out about oil and gas exploration. That's why we're trying to ask questions and bring in personnel like Uncle Tilly to kind of give us some clarification. Uncle Tilly, let's entertain the next question that was asked by one of our viewers. They said, how did your government engage the local communities and stakeholders regarding oil and gas exploration projects?
Well, there was no particular engagement as such, except statements I think were made in the Parliament about the limitation and the way forward in terms of maximizing our resources in our waters.
Right.
There was nothing to hide about it. It was something that was mentioned in the parliament of the country.
Yeah. Some Anne Marie Stewart on the live is saying government business should stay in the ministries and not outside in Tom, Dick, and Harry hands. We don't have information specifically to say that someone took that information out of the ministry. We're just hearing from the Prime Minister in his throne speech that there are little or no information regarding oil and gas exploration. There are little or no information. And I think it's so easy to prove if they are or if they're not. I think if the former Prime Minister is saying that there are information there, then the government now should have access to it. I mean, it's just common sense to think, right, Uncle Tilly? If the information is there, then it's easy to receive.
Obviously, it should be, yes. I'm saying that the staff, in particular the permanent secretary, or the energy officer, whoever it is, they should be able to provide this information.
Right. So it's very easy to find that out. I'm thinking that if the information is there, someone have access to it, bring it over, let's take a look at it. Let's take a look and see what it actually says. But as was stated by the Prime Minister, that has not been forthcoming at this point in time. There's little or no information there available at this point. All right, let's go on to the next question submitted by one of our viewers. They said, how did your government engage with local communities and stakeholders regarding oil and gas exploration project? I think I asked that already. Yeah. Can you outline specific regulation and legal framework your administration put in place for oil and gas exploration?
No, we never got to that stage, as I say. We never got. We basically laid the foundation, the delimitation, and trying to identify prospective investors in that area.
Right. Someone said I'm asking the wrong person this question. I would love to ask the former Prime Minister, and I would love to also have, and I hope that we will have the Prime Minister on as well to get some more information on it. But I think it's a start to have you on, Uncle Tilly, because you were there before the now NDC administration. So that's why somebody said, Junior, why don't you ask them questions to Dr. Keith? And yes, we want to have Dr. Keith. We would love to have an interview with Dr. Keith to ask him these questions. So let me ask you, Uncle Tilly, what other question do you think that we should, if we do have Dr. Keith Mitchell on the program, what other red flags or questions that you would like to ask him in regards to this oil and gas exploration?
Well, I mean, I think you also question him about the relationship with Grindberg. As I say, I've been reliably informed that though that is part of the history, but it shows some disregard for the resources of the country, the way that was handled.
Right.
And in as much as he came out openly and spoke about the amount of wells that were identified, he should be able to give some explanation.
Right.
Whether he was misled or whether he was just playing politics, he should be able to give some explanation on that.
Right. So were there any indication that state that there are all these wells? Because he did say I remember, I think I was there on the airport when it was stated that there are several wells, Did you get the indication that there are all these wells and of oil in our waters?
Well, he said so. I mean, he was dealing with those who were involved in the investigation, those who were doing the exploration. So I guess people take it for granted that we have oils, there are all these wells existing. But it turned out that it doesn't look so.
Right. Do you think that that's one of the reasons as to why 2013 was not very successful for the NDC, because that was a big selling point?
Well, that's a possibility, yeah, that's a possibility. Plus, NDC had its own internal problems at the time. We cannot ignore that. NDC had its issues from, the difficulties. But that could be one of the factors causing NDC to lose the election, because everybody was hopeful about oil and gas.
Right. Okay. You don't mind I ask you a few more questions? Now, all these questions was provided to me, and I promised my viewers that I would try to ask it. If it doesn't relate, you could just say it doesn't relate. But I have it on list, and I just want to so that at least no one could say I didn't ask the questions to you. What information and data should be made available in the new administration to ensure the smooth transition of oil and gas sector?
But again, as I say, the administration must get in control of this whole delimitation aspect of it and look for prospective investors and let the public know there's nothing to hide. Look what's happening in Guyana. I mean, the public know all of that. There are precedents you could follow. You could see how they're handling their resources. It is not anything that's so difficult. Trinidad and Tobago has a lot of experience in that area.
Now, if there is no idea of the significant amount of oil and gas in our waters, say for instance, there are some indication that might say, okay, there are not several, they're not 15, they're not 10, they're probably 2 or 3. Do you think then that it would be wise to explore for oil and gas if it's not that significant at this point in time?
Well, that's a matter for the experts and the economists and others to sit down and assess to determine whether the investment would worthwhile. You have to get the experts to analyze and assess the whole situation.
Right. But the pushback might be, if the experts are coming in order to move, as the former Prime Minister said, in order for anybody to move and start thinking anything exploration, it has to be significant because the investment is big. It's billions of dollars just to make a move in exploration. So you have to be sure. In other words, you have to have a more sense of certainty than just, would that be relevant to say, okay, if there is no significant amount, then it doesn't make sense. And especially in this time where everybody's moving away from fossil fuel, moving into, clean air technology, it may not make significant sense. Does that ring true? Did you think that, or believe that ring true to administration not moving forward with the exploration? If that is the case?
But again, we have to depend on the experts. For instance, you have the same Commonwealth Secretariat. They usually provide experts and technical assistance to these countries. So they could provide for us experts or technical people to give an assessment of whether the investment would worthwhile.
Right.
You don't always have to depend on the potential investor. There are other independent sources you could get advice from.
Okay. So they are. So in other words, what you're saying, there are sources that you could rely on that may not be billions of dollars just to make a move. There are smaller bracket of things, lower hanging fruits, in other words, that you could rely on to give you an assessment as to what we're looking at.
Yeah, and they have no interest in profiting from it. These are people who are, purely, experts in the area, and they're representing certain international organization.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, again, guys, we're talking here with former Prime Minister Tillman Thomas, and we're seeking trying to get some clarity. I know a lot of the questions that might be posed by some of our guests may not be directly related to the former Prime Minister. He was Prime Minister from 2008 to 2013. There was the NNP right after that for 2 additional terms, and now we have the NDC. So some of these things, as he said, as the former Prime Minister said, during his tenure, he was responsible, and they did significant work in the exploration, the delimitation, the boundaries, and the lines, and finding out how far out Grenada actually owned before we could even start digging. So before that process started, they started the process of digging and delimitation and finding out the boundaries. And that's the documents that they have. That's the work that the NDC did. Were you surprised then that the former Prime Minister he didn't call your name specifically, but he said the former administration before him, the former NDC before him, did work as well. Were there anything that you took away from that you wanted to clarify?
Well, I can't think of any serious work that was done except to defend our interests when Grindberg took us to court. We had to, and we defended our interests.
Right. Again, guys, we open up the phone lines. I know that there's a lot of messages in the chat. We open up the phone lines so you could call in at any time. The number again is 718-701-5720. Uncle Tilly, I have 2 more questions for you posted by some of our viewers, and they want to know if you could answer, were there any community development or social programs linked to oil and gas exploration, and what's the impact they have? I guess that doesn't apply to you because
No,
you
that
said
doesn't apply.
it doesn't apply.
Not really, because we never really,
Yes.
exploited the resources.
Right. Okay. How can the government ensure that the benefit of oil and gas exploration are equitably distributed amongst Grenadian population? I guess you could answer that because you were the former Prime Minister, and if you were the Prime Minister now, if there were a significant amount of oil and gas reserve in our waters, how could it be equitably distributed to the population based on your knowledge of being there and seeing what is needed?
Well, you set up structures to ensure that the communities in the country benefit the different areas like education, health, agriculture, and to help improve the social conditions in our society. We have to set up the proper structures so that the people could benefit infrastructure, so that, to improve our infrastructure, in particular, to decentralize activities in Grenada. That most of the activities in Grenada today are concentrated in St. George's. We have to decentralize so that people in St. Patrick's and Andrews. This is one of the reasons why we were going for a university campus at Hope.
Yes.
To decentralize activities. So that resources could help substantially to decentralize Grenada. So everybody doesn't have to run to St. George's for everything.
Right, and other significant, because we see as we see what's happening in Guyana, one of the fastest growing economy in the world right now, because they found oil and gas, and they're doing a lot of development on the island. So it could significantly impact not only Grenada, but of course the region as well. Uncle Tilly, is there anything else you wanted to add to the conversation about exploration, and anything else you want to add to the conversation here before we take calls?
Not much, except what I would like to say, that I believe that the Dickon Mitchell administration is doing an excellent job. I can't think of any other government in such a short period who have delivered on its promises as that government. I mean, you have the pension, you look at what's been done in education, the bi-monthly payment, and now they're addressing the issue of the public officers, regularizing public officers. So, I mean, they have been very, you have to give them credit for that. I mean, I can't think of any other government who has been, more forthcoming in that respect, in living up to what they promised to the Grenadian people. And we should really commend them for that and give them the necessary support to continue that transformation agenda.
Is there anything else that you would have liked or you would like to see the administration do more of, or probably less of?
Well, I think they've been trying on the different fronts. Obviously, I think agriculture is something I always feel there should be more to be done in agriculture. The area of agribusiness and agro-processing, because we still have a lot of fruits like mangoes and things, going to waste. We have a lot of like avocados. In the agribusiness sector, I would really like to see some seriousness, more serious in that area, so that the local communities could really be part of the economic movement in the country. Because we all grow fruits and vegetables at small amounts anyhow, but if we really get the processing business going, I could see people specializing in different fruits. One day a market where they could sell to have it processed.
Yeah.
So that's an area I would like to see. And healthcare too. We need to see improvement in healthcare.
Yeah.
Agriculture and health.
And health. We got a call on the line, Uncle Tilly. Caller, you live? Where are you calling us from?
Good evening, Junior and your guest.
Yeah, caller, go right ahead.
I'm calling from Grenada.
Go right ahead, Grenada.
You hear me clearly? You hear me, right?
Yeah, I was hearing a squeaky
Junior.
noise earlier, but I think it cleared up. Go ahead.
I tuned in late. I just tuned in a while ago when
Caller, I
you
hear
were breaking out
a very
the
annoying
ex-Prime
squeaky
Minister.
song. I don't know. Am I on speaker?
I'm calling you direct.
Okay. I'm just hearing a
You
squeaky
hear me?
song in the background. I'm hearing a very loud squeaky song. Some kind of feedback or something.
Yeah. You hear me better?
Okay, I hear you better. Go right ahead.
Yeah, I tuned in late and I heard you was mentioning that the ex-Prime Minister was part and parcel of the 2-8 to 213 government. Yeah, he was leader.
Right.
I
2-8 to
remember
213.
well. I tuned in late. So if I missed out, yeah, I tuned in late. If I missed out anything, sorry about that, but I just wanted to bring up something I know. I knew that the Prime Minister and 19 of them went down there. A 19-man delegation went down to Trinidad, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
To do what they call boundary delimitation. There was lawyers, there was marine biologists, there was a 19-man delegation that went down there. I would like to know, because I'm tuning late, I would like to know if the ex-Prime Minister have all those documents at the hand still in the possession, because the present NDC Prime Minister is saying that he do not have any file or any information. So I would like to know that if they could get information from that past Chile government.
Right.
And there was also 2 vans given to Grenada in Trinidad at that time. Was that part of the deal? The 2 Prado that was given to the NDC administration at the time. I would like to know from him if that was part of the boundary delimitation or it was from other sources. Thank you.
Right. Well, he could hear and he would respond. Uncle Tilly, you heard him?
I was heard when the vehicles had nothing to do with the delimitation. We went on to sign a delimitation agreement dealing with setting the boundaries. And that's what we did. The documents are in the relevant ministries, with energy or finance, wherever it is. We don't keep documents. I don't keep documents. All the documents remain in the ministry. And whatever documents we sign, that would be in the ministry.
Right. Okay. Clear enough. That document should be there. Again, we are doing our own internal investigation on this just to find some answers for our own self. We don't know if we can come up with anything, but let's see. All right. And Uncle Tilly, I appreciate your time. Any closing words before we wrap up and take some calls on the other side?
From me?
Yes, Uncle Tilly, yes.
Yeah, well, no, as I say, I think we have a good opportunity to really strengthen our institutions in Grenada now, especially our democratic institution and the public service in particular. We need to create opportunities for our people. And we need to promote people based on merit, not on political affiliation. We have potential in Grenada, and I believe this new administration is on the right footing. Once we give them the necessary support and assistance, I could see the transformation agenda being successful.
Yes. Thank you so much, Uncle Tilly. And again, while I'm in Grenada for the 19th for the celebration, I might need some information from you. So we'll keep in touch when I get down there. All right?
Okay, yes. I'm always available.
Yeah. Thank you for always being available and taking that call. Appreciate it. Yeah. We'll keep in touch.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Guys, that was the former Prime Minister Tillman Thomas talking about everything that his government was involved in terms of oil and gas exploration, which is primarily the delimitation boundaries, creating or setting up that boundaries between Trinidad. We know that the administration was not able to do the same with Venezuela. They was then voted out of power in 2013 by the then NNP, who served 2 terms after they was then voted out by the new National Democratic Congress headed by Honorable Deacon Mitchell. The questions that are swirling all over is about the documents, all right, information. The Prime Minister is saying that there are little or no documents in transition presented to the administration as it relates to oil and gas exploration. That question has been swirling. The former Prime Minister is saying that somebody is lying, and we played back the clip earlier from the WPG-10. So we are looking to unearth and find out for our own self the truth.
Oil and gas was not mentioned in a single report.
Dr. Mitchell, however, said that the exploitation efforts, which were started under prior administration, had continued under the 2008 NDC administration.
Enough documentation, how you mean? That's years of that. Don't forget, the government that came into office, NDC, before this one, and would have followed up on a number of activities. So it's a very strange phenomenon. I'm saying it's a blatant lie.
For Primetime News at the Carib Update News Desk, I am Nikita Wells.
This is Primetime Caribbean.
Now, get ready to conquer the road with Zion Driving Instructors, conveniently located at 1782 Flatbush Avenue in Brooklyn, New York. We are your ticket to driving success. We are known for and specialize in the best rates for driving classes, ensuring you reach your driving goals affordably and efficiently. Our expert instructors offer personalized one-on-one training, making you a confident and skilled driver. Plus, we offer convenient 5-hour classes and various packages deal to give you even more value. Ready to take the wheel? Call us today at 718-374-5678. That's 718-374-5678. Or visit ZionDrivingInstructors.com. That's ZionDrivingInstructors.com. Zion Driving Instructors, your journey to the open road starts here. Contact us and make your driving dreams a reality. Mention this ad. All Pro Health Staffing announced its immediate healthcare opening in Queens, New York and Nassau County.
Why choose All Pro? Because we're simply the best. We're a company for nurses, by nurses.
Join All Pro Health Staffing as an RN manager, RN supervisor, CNA or LPN.
We want what you want, and that is great pay and respect.
With full-time position with flexible shift and great pay. Make a meaningful difference in healthcare. Apply today at services@allprony.com. Call 516-387-4246. That's 516-387-4246. Your healthcare career starts here with All Pro Health Staffing.
Choose All Pro. Call now.
I want you folks to play these 3 games from the NLA. Daily pick 3 cash flow and play with. You will be supporting sports and culture, nation building and our future. So go out and play, folks, make it a must. You will see what the National Lottery is doing for us. When you play pick 3 cash flow and play with, the NLA will support you all the way.
Starting September 30th, Monday to Friday, these 3 games will be drawn mid-morning, 9:45 a.m., midday, 12:45 p.m., and evenings, 7:45 p.m. The National Lotteries, supporting sports, culture, and nation building.
Sunday money day.
Miami Carnival Friday, Jab Touchdown. An electrifying night of pure Grenadian vibes. Friday, October 6th at 24 Carat Studios, 6741 Sunrise Boulevard, Bay 29, Plantation, Florida. Straight out of Grenada, the Jab boss himself, Town Bree.
I am the Jab boss. Oh, you mean?
The sensational Skinny Banton.
What I do wrong again, lad?
And the Groove Master, Randy Isaac. Plus, more artists to be added. Grab your early bird tickets for just $50 online at jabtouchdownmiami.eventbrite.com or call 754-214-1272, 954-471-2484 or 718-666-1110. Showtime midnight. Your DJs coming to shell it, Spice, and straight out of Greens. Jabba, the maddest. Jab Touchdown, the ultimate Grenada Jab experience. Miami Carnival Friday, brought to you by the Grenada Cultural Festival Group.
Again, we want to thank former Prime Minister Tillman Thomas for chatting with us and taking that call, always answering that call, making himself available. Guys, we are really looking into this thing seriously. We have a few of our team, connecting with others on the ground to try to find out the real answer to this oil document. Is it available? Is it not available? Did the government find any documents there? All of that stuff. We're trying to find out. We're on a seek information finding mission. Got a caller. Caller, you live? Where are you calling us from?
I'm calling you from London, Junior.
London.
Mr. Danny McIntosh.
Hey, my friend, how are you?
Not too bad. Junior, I think this is such a non-story.
It's a what story?
Non-story.
It's a what story?
A non-story.
Non-story.
A non-story. There's nothing. Yeah, there's nothing. This to me has just come out as a smokescreen to divert the people's attention away from the Kawana Bay debacle, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. Okay.
Now,
let's back up a little bit. I like to talk to you, Danny, by the way, because you bring a fresh perspective, and we could conversate. How is it a non-story, right? When you have the administration saying that the transition document that was supposed to be provided for the best interest of the entire country, it is not available. So if there is significant amount of oil and gas, as was stated by the former Prime Minister, where is it? Where is the information?
Okay. There's two things. During and prior to the election, a lot of people were saying when Keith Mitchell made this announcement about the oil and gas,
right?
A lot of people were saying, where is the oil and gas? Tillman Thomas has now confirmed that there are deposits of oil and gas off the shores of Grenada.
Well, he didn't confirm. He didn't confirm because he said his administration didn't go as far.
No. If you look back at the 2000 energy survey, which himself and Nazim Burke were party to, it also mentions there are petroleum and oil deposits off Grenada. All right? So there's no doubt that there is oil and gas off the shores of Grenada.
I'm listening.
All right. I heard some noise in the background.
No. That's me sneezing. That's just me sneezing, but go ahead.
Okay. So there's oil and gas off the shores of Grenada. I don't know why people doubt that when the maritime surveys have suggested that. Right. And then I also went onto Google, and it's there in the public forum, the names of the wells, the depths that the wells were drilled to, how much oil they presume may have come out of these wells. So I don't understand why they're saying they haven't got that information when it's there in the public forum.
No, they're saying the transitional document, the information that would be trickled down from administration to administration via the permanent secretary, that information spoke about everything else besides documentation on oil and gas. Now, as far as our investigation, I'll give you a little insight. I was able to speak to a few ministers or former ministers involved that was at the seat, at the table during the former administration, right? And these former ministers, they have no information, no documentation, was never presented with any documentation whatsoever, right? So where is the information? Where is the information?
Well, but you're saying where is the information?
Yes.
So if you're saying where is the information, how comes I can see things in the public forum? It's there on
public,
Google.
but there's two different things, you know. You're talking about public forum, which me and you could read, and you're talking about transitional information. That is different. That is different.
But information.
If I am a prime minister or a elected official coming in, I don't want to depend on what's in the public forum. I want hardcore information. That public forum information is for the press. The press don't know everything that's happening inside of the administration, that the permanent secretary is doing. You understand? That information is supposed to be transitioned.
I fully understand that, but Tillman himself alluded to one thing before he left, one of the last questions that you asked him, and he said that when people are appointed to certain positions, it should be about their ability, not their political affiliation.
Right.
When this administration took over, there was, I would use the word, like a bloodbath in a lot of departments where people.
But that
who
is
were
diverting
there,
from the topic. I don't even want to go there yet because that is
no,
diverting from the
not
from this.
diverting from that. Well, that is part of the topic. So if you haven't received information from permanent secretaries, etc., who have left employment or sacked from employment, obviously there's going to be issues.
But permanent secretary don't operate like that. Permanent secretary is permanent. They could be moved around. They could be moved around. But what I'm saying is, the permanent secretary is there. The transitional information is supposed to be available. And the other thing is, the former administration is saying that the information is there. The information is there. The current administration say that they can't find it. So why can't the former administration just point them to where the information is? Well, you can say, okay, the information is at this person's house or the information is at this desk. Why so difficult to point where the information is so it could be retrieved? What is the difficulty in doing that?
Yeah, but how you're saying it, as if you're saying when you were given your program, you were saying it was like, oh, where is the file? As if it's some little file that they have and it's hiding in somebody's desk. As somebody said previously, a lot of these things are done by email, are done by electronic transmission, etc., etc. So if you want certain things, when it's passed over, you can go and retrieve it by electronically. Is there?
No, the information, the transitional information, the information. That is what runs the government. It's beneficial. It is beneficial to you, it's beneficial to me, it's beneficial to every Grenadian, and not only the entire region. Because if there is significant oil deposit offshore in Grenada, as the former Prime Minister said, a lot, 6, 7, 8 wells, whatever, then let's explore it. Let's get it. You see what's happening in Guyana? We would like that for Grenada.
So are you trying to tell me that none of these details is there in any books that any of the what do you call it? In
transitional documents. That's what they're saying. They're saying that this information. They're saying that this transitional information is not available. I'll play it back. And I'm just going by what was said here, right? Listen this.
Exploitation efforts, which were started under prior administration, had continued under the 2008 NDC administration.
Enough documentation, how you mean? That's years of that. Don't forget, the government that came into office, NDC, before this one, and would have followed up on a number of activities. So it's a very strange, I'm saying it's a blatant lie.
For Primetime News at the Carib Update News Desk,
there was a little bit more I should have tracked back from. But essentially, they're saying, the government is saying that they don't have that information, and the former administration saying that they should have the information. The information is widely available. But it's easy to prove that. Because if...
Okay, but you're falling into the narrative, Junior. You're taking a particular point of view without looking at it from a different perspective.
Now, that's why I want to hear your point of view. I'm playing devil's advocate.
Yeah, I know you're playing devil's advocate, but from my perspective, number one, if you are doing a throne speech, that's the first time I've ever heard in a throne speech where something like that has been mentioned. Usually a throne speech is used to outline policies.
Well, the policy that I see,
education,
right?
Not into there's nothing in a throne speech I've heard in the past that alludes to an investigation. All right. You talk about what you're going to do about education, what you're going to do about the healthcare service, those types of things. Not into all of a sudden an investigation. And I'm looking at the Governor General. To me, she seemed a little bit embarrassed that something like that would come up. From my perspective, and it's not taking it down from a political party angle, I'm seeing this as some sort of diversion to throw people off the fact that the deal with Kawana Bay is very dodgy. That's from my perspective.
But that had nothing to do with the conversation. I don't even want to get into that because that is a separate conversation. But if you're saying Kawana Bay, it's a distraction. But if you want to talk about Kawana Bay, we could talk about Kawana Bay, and we could say that yes, they might say that the purchase price of Kawana Bay was less than what it was bought over for. But you're looking at the government of the day, or the government was in court and would have had to pay 3 times or 4 times that amount in court.
If they lost.
But they had there was the trajectory of that case.
If they lost.
Yeah, but then you're talking about leading up to that. You're talking about the legal, the lawyer fees and all these other fees associated with that. All the fees and associated, which would even throw it even above. Before we start to talk about payoff if they lost, legal fees and everything else would be also substantially high. So listen. It's a different topic. And I don't know if it's a distraction. I'm not saying that it is, but I specifically, I believe that if there is oil and gas deposits outside in the shores of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique, that would significantly affect the country. We could exploit those products, and we could have better schooling. We could have all these other things, and it's going to significantly impact the country. Then I say, let us find out if we could exploit it and get that information and reap the benefit. Not for only you and myself, but for the entire region that could benefit from it. That's what I think. That's how I see it. So I don't think it's a non-story.
And I fully concur in relation to that. But I think that the seemingly attack to sort of personalize it and actually call out Gregory Bowen and now,
I haven't called Gregory Bowen name.
No, not you.
Okay.
Not you, the Prime Minister himself. Dickon Mitchell mentioning people's name as if there's some kind of conspiracy. And it always seems that this administration always brings out conspiracy and then nothing happens. They talked about faith. They talked about, all other things from briefcase and nothing comes out of it. They talked about the Polish person's money, and then it dies a death. And that seems to me a worry, where they use these sort of tactics to distract people from other things that are not going as well as is eluded by their supporters.
Right. Okay.
Everybody's for transformation, but I said to you before, sometimes you got to point out some of the negatives.
Absolutely.
And if people don't do that, if everything a government says, and because you're a supporter, you automatically jump and you believe, and then nobody else can say anything contrary, then as Tillman Thomas said, that is not democracy.
No, and you know me very well. I like open debates. I like conversation. I like when we could debate on topics, difference of opinion, because I believe.
Yes, I agree. But sometimes what I see, I'll give you an example. Mm-hmm. As I say, I'm no great fan of Keith Mitchell, as some people allude to believe. All right. Now, in your forum, people are writing derogatory things. What has that got to do with anything? If you want to make a comment about a specific topic, why people have to talk about, look at the man mouth and how he's shaped, and that's such childish. If an NDC supporter was all of a sudden start saying derogatory things about certain members of NDC, people will be up in uproar.
Yeah,
why can't
it goes both ways. It goes both ways. We had to cut it off here, but it goes both ways.
Well,
I think they could both mature up a little bit. Listen, Danny, thank you so much for calling. I appreciate your time and contributing to the platform. All right, thank you, my brother.
Take it easy.
Okay, cool. Yeah. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. Thanks for being a part of our program. Not forgetting, guys, South Florida support, NDC support, South Florida chapter present the inaugural gala at the Floridian Ballroom, and that's on the 14th of October. All right, get your tickets right now. Big up to Leslie and the crew in South Florida. Again, guys, if you have a business and you want to advertise on Ride Along Live, please inbox us or give us a call at 718-701-5720. On behalf of all of our production crew here at Team Ride Along, Kibbs, Gail, and of course, the boss, Lynn, our senior executive producer, good night. See you guys tomorrow. Ride Along Live, Ride Trivia continues tomorrow with no drama on a Friday. See you tomorrow, guys.
Advertise with us and reach millions daily, weekly, monthly. Yeah, over 10 million per month. It pays to advertise with us. Reach more and let us send your business viral. Advertise with us and reach more. All Pro Health Staffing announced its immediate healthcare opening in Queens, New York and Nassau County.
Why choose All Pro? Because we're simply the best. We're a company for nurses, by nurses.
Join All Pro Health Staffing as an RN manager, RN supervisor, CNA, or LPN.
We want what you want, and that is great pay and respect.
With full-time position with flexible shift and great pay. Make a meaningful difference in healthcare. Apply today at services@allprony.com. Call 516-387-4246. That's 516-387-4246. Your healthcare career starts here with All Pro Health Staffing.
Choose All Pro. Call now.